Okay, the story we heard today, we've heard it before. It's very common during Holy Week. When preparing for today's sermon, I came across a different way of looking at this text. We always focus on how it's just part of a much larger story, the Easter story, the crucifixion of Jesus and his eventual resurrection from the dead on Easter morning. But if we step away from the Easter story and come at this from a whole new direction, I believe there's a deeper meaning in this interaction between Pilate and Jesus. And even more so in Jesus' answer, and yes, he does give an answer to Pilate, to the question that Pilate says, "Are you the king of the Jews?" If we look deeper, Jesus is giving us and Pilate a glimpse of what his truth is in our lives. So as a teacher, the teacher in me, I just can't get away from that. I give my students a very large, broad, focusing themes for the year. It's best to look at history in light of some themes rather than take it piece by piece. You'll get really confused. So you guys are my class today. So I'm going to give you some overarching themes that we're going to try to answer today. And those themes will help guide us to exploring Jesus' meaning in this text we've heard so many times before. And those three questions are, is God's kingdom meant to be only in our heart? What is worth following? And finally, is Jesus a king? So the first question, King of the Jews. Pilate asked, but we need to know who Pilate is. Let's take a look at the historical Pilate. First, his name is Marcus Pontius Pilate. He's a Roman prefect, which is basically a governor, just a fancier title. And he was governor of Judea from 26 to 36 in CE, the Common Era, which I will use in reference to AD as a teacher of me. I'm trying to get used to saying it the other way. Judea itself existed as a Roman province from 6 to 13 CE, or 6 to 135 CE. And he was the 5th prefect of Judea. He wasn't the first, he wasn't the last. But Judea at the time is considered the backwater of Rome. That's where careers go to die. You don't go up from Judea. That's where you end. And if you're there because something happened politically or you displease the Caesar. It's where you go to finish your career. And sometimes we see Pilate as this weak guy who was forced to crucify Jesus. He fell to what the mob wanted, and that's what he did. But we got to really understand who Pilate is. Pilate is a member of the equestrian class. He's a Roman knight. In terms of Rome and Roman soldiers, there is no one tougher in Rome. The Roman equestrians, when you get to that level, you are the top of the top. There's no harder soldier, there's no tougher soldier, and there's no more elite soldier in all of Rome. So he's not this weak guy that gets pushed around. There's no way he got to that level, and that's what he is. Pilate does what Pilate wants to do. Nobody forces him to do it. So we just got to dispel that notion that he was forced into what he did. So that's who we got. Pilate, the Roman governor, member of the elite warrior class, strong as they come in Rome. So now with that, look at John 18, verse 33. Pilate entered the headquarters, and he summoned Jesus and asked him, "Are you the king of the Jews?" We learn here that the Roman knight, the governor, the Roman leadership, was concerned with a challenge to Rome's authority. Rome was the world's superpower at the time. Nobody challenged Rome. Nobody stood to Rome. So, would an earthly king worry Rome? Probably not. Rome had many kings underneath the Caesar's rule. Even in Judea, there was a king that answered to Pilate. Kings did not worry Rome. They dealt with them. They had the power. So was it the earthly king, Jesus, that was worrying this Roman governor? Probably not. But if you consider that even Pilate, even Rome, had heard about this guy going around the countryside, performing miracles, raising the dead, healing the sick, and top that off, he's gaining followers beyond just the Jewish people. He's got the Samaritans, the Gentiles. Even among Roman soldiers and Roman citizenry, Jesus is gaining followers. Well, you got to remember, Pilate is at the end of his career. He's still hoping to go further. He can't have this possible threat to Rome in this guy, Jesus. So he's worried about Jesus. He's got to deal with him somehow. He can't let word of what's happening in Judea get back to Caesar in Rome. So does Jesus threaten Caesar's power all the way in Rome? The answer is possibly. We don't know. But Pilate continues, and if you're going to accuse somebody, you're going to end up killing somebody, you need to know what they've done. So in John 18, 34 and 35, Jesus gives him an answer to his question, and he says, do you ask this on your own, or did somebody tell you to do this? How do you know what's being said about me? And Pilate replied to him, I'm not a Jew. It's your own people that did it. So tell me, what's going on? What have you done, Jesus? That's the question parents ask a lot, isn't it? What have you done? Sometimes we don't even know the answer, but you can get some stuff out of them if you just ask, what have you done? Let them talk. That's what Pilate's doing here. He needs to understand what Jesus did. So what do we learn? Jesus is falling victim to politics. The politics of Judea, the politics of Rome, the politics of a country underneath occupation. The chief priests and Jewish leaders are thinking only of themselves. It's selfish politics. Selfish politics destroys the world. The teaching Jesus was sharing with everybody, God's teaching, God's word, threatened their power status. He's teaching a whole different way than they're used to. This is going to affect them. They don't like it. This worried the religious men and made them look for somebody to save them. Who do they look to? Do they look to their God? Do they go to the temple and pray? No. They look to Rome. They look to Pilate to do their dirty work. They looked to Pilate to be the scapegoat, and lucky for them, Pilate was ready to play the part. He was a reluctant scapegoat, but he answered the call and did the job that they wanted of him. Pilate needed to ensure that he remained in power, he controlled the situation, and it was him that made the decision, not the mob telling him what to do. A weak governor would not get out of Judea. And why did the religious teachers need Jesus out of the way? Why didn't they just deal with him? They had the right to deal with him under their own law. But he was a very popular teacher. They didn't want to take the blame. Why would they eliminate somebody that people loved and have all this put on them when they got this perfectly good guy over here named Pilate? Rome got the blame for everything. Why can't they take the blame for this? So they handed Jesus over to Pilate. And we have here two very different leaders on display before us. Pilate ruled by terror and taking life, and Rome was good at it. Jesus ruled and came to give his life for others. Jesus held the people's loyalty through love. Pilate kept people in line through the violence. Pilate governed under the authority of an unpredictable Caesar way off in Rome, whereas Jesus had the unwavering authority of an ever-present God there with him. Where would you rather be? In the constant shade of God's love, or in the unpredictable worldly place, Rome? So it continues. Pilate has not got the answer he wants. He needs Jesus to declare he is the King of the Jews so he can dictate his death. He's not getting that answer. So in John 18:36, Jesus answered him further, my kingdom is not of this world. If my kingdom were from this world, my followers would be here fighting you right now. I would not have been handed over to you. But my kingdom is not here. So what Jesus is telling Pilate and the rest of us, if we listen to this section and hear his words, he's telling him that you have no power over me. My kingdom is not of this world. Rome exists in an earthly realm. My kingdom does not. Therefore, I have no beholding to Rome. Your might means nothing to me. Imagine Pilate's anger at that response. Nobody told Rome that I don't have to listen to you. If they did, they were wiped out. You got this teacher, not even a warrior, telling Rome, you have nothing over me. No one would stand against Caesar, especially not from this backwater place called Judea. Who would dare to challenge Rome's authority? So like any good politician, Pilate clearly, cohesively, and quite incorrectly heard one thing that he needed to hear. He heard Jesus admit he was a king. That was it. Case closed, man guilty, we can now crucify him. Pilate, like many people today, only hear enough to support the position that proves his point. But he missed the real statement Jesus had made. Jesus never once said he was king of the Jews. Never once declared that he was a king. Why would he? Jesus didn't come for the Jewish people. Jesus came for everyone. His kingdom was not of this world. What he came for was way beyond anything a Roman soldier, politician, or citizen could understand, way beyond what we could understand even today. Jesus emphatically stated that his kingdom was not from here. Therefore, he was not bound by Roman law. What Jesus is telling Pilate is simply, if I wanted my followers to save me, they would. If I wanted to destroy Rome, you would be destroyed. I'm not coming for this, is what Jesus is telling him. This is not my purpose. Jesus knew that his kingdom was from heaven, and therefore he had dominion over all the kingdoms of the earth, including the mighty Rome. That put him over top of anybody's authority, even Caesar. But ultimately, Jesus came for a whole other purpose. He was not the conquering Messiah that the Jewish people thought he should be. He was not this religious upstart trying to cause Rome to topple. He came for a whole other purpose, and that was to die for all those that hear his word. So the next question Pilate asked him, are you a king? In John 18:37, Pilate asked one more time, so are you a king? And Jesus answered, that great uncommitted answer, you say that I am a king. For this I was born, and for this I came into the world, to testify to the truth. Everyone who belongs to the truth listens to my voice. Jesus never once said he was a king. What he did is tell Pilate why he came into this world. But I'm envisioning here a very famous scene from the movie A Few Good Men. You guys all know it. If you've seen the movie at all, any once in your life, you can see the scene that I'm having in my head. I can just see Pilate saying, I want the truth. Are you the king of the Jews? And Jesus calmly looking at him and saying, you want the truth? You can't handle the truth. In all honesty, truth is an elusive subject, open to interpretation and belief, and open to be told by the victor or the ones in charge. For instance, I'm going to ask you a couple questions. I'm curious to see what your answers are. Who invented the light bulb? All right. Well, what about Humphrey Davy or Joseph Swan, who actually had a working concept of the light bulb years ahead of Edison? Edison built upon their research. Why do we know Thomas Edison? Because he had the right backer at the right time to push the fact that he invented the light bulb. But we forget those minor players. Another question, something maybe a little closer to home for those of us in Michigan. Who invented the automobile? What about Carl Benz, who in 1885 had the first working model of an automobile that resembled the modern automobile? Why do we know Henry Ford? Because where we are. So the truth is sometimes what we're told. One last question. Who discovered the Americas? We're told for a lot of years it's Columbus, What about the Vikings that came here 500 years before Columbus? What about those Native Americans that crossed that ice bridge back even before written record? Some people were already here. Do you discover where people are here? The truth is what we believe, what we're told. So if we're looking here, is the truth is not always what we know, but what we believe. Do we want the truth? Can we handle the truth? What if the truth is not what we want to hear? I would propose that when it's what we don't want to hear is maybe when we need to hear it the most. Pilate didn't really want to hear the truth. It was right there before him. His wife even tried to warn him. And guys, if I can teach you anything today, listen to your wives. It's a better thing for us. All right? But Pilate failed to hear what was told to him. He failed to hear what we need to know today. Jesus is a king. Jesus is the ruler we need to follow. The Bible is the instruction book we need to read and seek understanding from. So to answer the three focus questions, God's kingdom is not meant for our heart. It is meant for us to strive for every day and to strive towards. It is meant to be a part of our world today, not just in our heart. Jesus is who's worth following. He is the king who gives us what no human king can, salvation and freedom from death. And finally, yes, Jesus is a king, but not an earthly king. He is a heavenly king, and we enter into his kingdom when we submit to his rule over our lives. Amen.